Welcome back, friends. So today is a day we've been waiting on for a long time. You guys know that we partner with Lippert Components. Well, today we've got a huge upgrade from them and super excited. We're going to get new axles, new springs, disc brakes on a lightweight travel trailer. We may be one of the only Imagines to have this upgrade, and maybe some shocks. We'll talk about that later. Stay tuned. All right, so the man with a mission today, this is Mel. He's a mobile tech from Lippert, and he's going to be most of this video. So he's the expert here. I'm just a YouTube guy. Don't ever listen to me, but this guy knows what he's doing. Mel, I'm gonna let you tell everyone, what are we doing today?
Okay. What we're gonna do is upgrade our axles and that to a disc brake. So we're gonna put in a hydraulic actuator, which will be controlled by the electronics on the truck, which will engage the hydraulic brakes. We're gonna basically upgrade what we have right now to from electric to hydraulic disc brakes.
So that's exciting. So we're also, I think we're doing, so these are 3,500 pound axles. I think we're putting 4,000 pound axles?
4,000 pound axles.
Okay.
Yeah. So there'll be an upgrade on weight capacity as well.
Cool.
Yep.
And so we wanted to do some shocks, maybe not. Explain to them why we may not be able to do that.
There's going to be, potentially there could be some clearance issues. When you're making tight turns and that, if you ever watch or can see a travel trailer or a fifth wheel, the axles will kind of move, the tires will roll a little bit,
and that's normal.
Movement. Yeah, that's all normal.
Right. Some people freak out when that happens,
yeah,
but that's normal.
That's all normal. But what can potentially happen is the inside edge of the tire could come in contact with the shock or the shock clip, and potentially cause some problems later, wearing on the inside of the tire, blowouts, things like that. So we like to confirm all our measurements and our clearances before we install anything like that.
See, that's something that, you know, some YouTuber like me, I wouldn't even think about that. I would just, okay, it fits, let's slap them on, go down the road, and the first corner I hit, it's going to rub the shock. So, yeah, we're super excited. You ready to go on?
I'm ready to do it.
Let's do it, man.
All right.
Awesome, cool. Obviously, the first thing we have to do is get this thing off the ground. Mel, tell us what we're looking for when we place our jacks.
So what we're looking for is, this is your bottom flange of your beam, and this is the web of your beam. You want your jack to be in line with the web of the beam on the bottom flange. Otherwise, that flange will roll one way or the other.
Awesome. All right, Mel, we've got her off the ground. We showed where we wanted to place the jacks in the back. What about here in the front?
Yeah, what I do here, we're looking for the contact point where the drawbars come in, or the A-frame ties into the main frame right here. I've got my jack stand underneath that on both sides. That's just supporting everything where the drawbar would.
Okay, Mel, so let's talk a little bit about the axles that are coming out. We don't have any issues with these axles. We're just doing an upgrade today. So talk about what we should look at if we're checking our axles.
Yeah, one of the things you want to look for is the camber or the crown in the tube. If you look, you can see that this tube is actually kind of bent in the center. That's your camber, and that'll straighten out as you load it. You want to take a look at your springs. Make sure your springs still have arc in them. Check and make sure that you don't have any loose bolts or anything like that. But yeah, these axles are still in good shape. Nothing that I see that needs looking at. I mean, they're in good shape.
Can we pull them out and take a look at that camber you're talking about?
Yeah, you'd probably be able to see it a lot better.
Cool. Okay, here's what Mel's talking about. A lot of folks look under their chassis and see that their axles look like they're frowning a little bit. Well, they're actually supposed to do that. You can see the level doesn't quite meet right there, and that's what they're supposed to do, right, Mel?
Yeah, that's built into the axle in the tube or the beam, and generally you'll see that to be between an eighth to a quarter of an inch.
Okay.
And that's normal. What happens is, once the axle is loaded on the outside, that'll flatten out. It's all designed for load.
Cool. Okay, so hey, Mel just made a great discovery here. I'm so glad he's here. And this one is on me. You know, you're supposed to have your brakes checked at least once a year, right,
Yep.
Mel? So tell him, here's a very big clue that I needed my brakes adjusted more than I may have known.
So when you look at the heat signature on this drum, you can see that this side is doing more braking
It's very obvious.
than this side because of the color. You don't see that rust or that bubbling of the paint.
Absolutely.
So this brake should have been adjusted a little bit more. So you had a little more braking here to even out your braking.
And that's on me, guys. So make sure to get those brakes adjusted, and you can see why. I mean, it's terribly obvious. I mean, that was getting hot.
Yep.
Okay, friends, let's take a quick look at what we're installing here. Mel, you kind of want to take it away?
Yeah. So what we got here is the disc brake upgrade. Got your rotor and everything on assembly, caliper and that. Gonna have new springs. Now the other thing that we're looking at here is this tie plate. You see this overhang here with the hole in it. That's going to be for the shock. So
if we can get them to fit.
Yep.
Right.
And so if you already have a coach that does have shocks, you'll see this plate, but you can upgrade to this as well.
Yeah, that's something you could just buy on its own, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
cool.
Yep.
And then we've already got brass
Yep.
bushings in our springs, and the we got heavy duty shackles going in. This is looking fine. Installing the road armor. So brass liners in it. What do they call those? Liners, bushings?
Bushings. Brass bushings.
Yep. And they are wet bushings. Now tell us a little bit, Mel, why do you put the fitting on the inside? So there's a grease fitting. Hold on, let me show them right quick.
Yep.
See if I can show you guys. Obviously, you put a grease fitting right there. I think you can see it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, your first intuition would say, okay, let's put them to the outside so I can get to them, but Mel actually has a really good reason why you put them on the inside.
So one is they're easier to get at and as far as greasing, but what I actually want you to be able to do is walk by your coach and inspect your axles and make sure that all of the nuts are still on all the axle bolts.
And you also told me it's a good time, it kind of forces you to get under there and take a look.
Right, so you're gonna, when you go to service them and grease them, you're actually looking a little bit more at the axle hanger and the frame and the springs and what have you.
That's a great tip. We're about to hang this first axle, and Mel's got some great tips on, if you're especially if you're doing this by yourself, how to hang these things, because they're a little bit heavy.
Yep, and so basically if you're working alone, what we'll do is we'll just pick up the one side, and I'm going to slip the bolt in again with my grease zert on the inside, but I'm just slipping it in there enough. I'm not worried about getting it all lined up, because I'm going to let this one hang, and then I'm going to go to the other side and I'll pick the other side up so they're level, and the other bolt will go right through, and then I can come over here and put this one through. Nice. So we're not torquing anything. You know, this is a nice and easy install. So really, I mean, you don't even have a jack under these things. No, they're not that bad. I mean, you can use a jack if you wanted, but I just found it easier. Yeah, seems pretty simple. Okay, friends, moving right along. We're getting it mocked up right now, so we're not fully installed right now, and just showing you how we're sitting right here. Now you'll notice that Mel has the jack on an axle. There's no weight on that axle, so don't flip out. All right, let's go over here and talk to Mel for a second. And so this is kind of a new thing for all of us, really, for Lippert and for us. Lighter weight travel trailer, putting shocks on it. We got to make sure we've got clearances, right? I mean, it's kind of why we're mocking it up and putting the tires on temporarily. Yeah, what we're doing is we just kind of put our tires and everything in. There's no real weight on the jack or anything, but we want to know exactly where our tires are going to be located in relation to the side of the beam, and so we can confirm that we have clearance for our shocks.
Correct. Just like we mentioned in the intro, you know, you camber back and forth a little bit when you're taking tight turns, and Mel, he knows his stuff, and he's smart enough to look for those things where I would not be. That's why he's doing this, and I'm not. So stay tuned, guys. We're getting it rocking and rolling. It's looking good. So from the get-go, Lippert's been very clear, hey, we may or may not be able to do the shocks, and it actually doesn't look like we can do the shocks. Mel, you want to explain a little bit why?
Yeah, basically what we're having is the height of this beam is not tall enough. This is a 6-inch beam, and what it does is the shock doesn't have the clearance to function properly.
Do its work, yeah.
Yeah, because it won't stand up high enough.
Yeah.
The shock should be at between a 50 and a 60-degree angle.
Correct. And you guys were very clear about that. So we were hoping to get them in, but it doesn't look like it's going to work. 6-inch I-beam, lighter weight travel trailer. You guys really don't put shocks on lighter weight trailers. This was kind of like not a guinea pig thing, but it was, hey, let's see if we can do it.
Yeah.
And so just a real world situation. Just not going to be able to do it on this particular trailer.
Yep.
All right, man. Okay, friends, so obviously we're going from electric brakes to hydraulic brakes, and there's never been hydraulic lines run to this rig. So we got to find a place to put them, and Mel's going to give us some pointers on how to place your hydraulic lines for your brakes.
So what I'm doing now is I've got my flexible hose into the caliper, and what I want to do is I want to find an optimum location for this so that as this travels up and down, my line doesn't rub the tire or get pinched in any way.
For obvious reasons.
You know, because once you pinch this line and puncture it, then you're going to have a no brake issue because there's going to be hydraulic. You won't have the fluid in there. But that's what we're trying to do. As far as right now, we're just mocking it up to get a good location for where to put the fitting.
We'll show you guys when it's all finished. Okay, so what Mel is doing right now is putting the tires on before he makes the very final decision about where to put the brake line, for obvious reasons. I mean, you got to know exactly where the tire is going to be to make sure it's not rubbing on the lines. And we want to get these tires on, put full weight on them. And I can tell you, that looks cool with disc brakes. Looking good. Let's keep it going. Okay, friends, day 2 of the huge upgrade from Lippert Components. Generally speaking, so yesterday, Mel took a significant amount of time trying to see if we could make those shocks work, right?
Yeah.
So generally speaking, how long would this upgrade take?
Generally speaking, this would take a day.
About a day.
Yeah.
So we're filming a YouTube video, and like I said, he tried to mock up the shocks anyway. I mean, you spent a good amount of time just to see if there's any way we could do that, and it just wasn't happening. So about a day this project would normally take. We're on to the brake lines. Mel's got some good tips for how to uncoil your brake lines here. So I'm going to give it to him. Take it away, Mel.
So when you get the kit, it's going to come coiled up. All of your brake lines will come in it coiled up. Just find you a nice flat smooth spot and just roll this stuff out. And instead of trying to unkink it, or roll it out, if you just find a nice flat spot like that, and then it's much easier. And again, you can kind of use your body here and just kind of straighten it out a little bit more, to kind of get it good. It isn't going to be perfect, but if you try to just uncoil it, the chances of kinking it are very good.
Exactly. And like I said, we're battling hurricanes or Tropical Storm Sally right now. So that's the kids' toys. So I used to have an old Jeep and worked on it a good bit. And I had a crawler, but now this is my crawler. I knew I shouldn't have got rid of it. All right, before we get this brake line going, Mel's going to hit these wet bolts with a little bit of grease, and he's got a good pointer here for you. Go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, so what we want to do is, this being a brand new setup, I'm just going to put 2 pumps in this. That's plenty of grease. You don't want your grease squirting out everywhere. Now, when you go back and have to grease your shackles again, all you should have to do is just put 1 pump of grease in it. You don't need to have grease spewing out everywhere, because all that's going to do is collect you know, dirt and debris.
Nice. And so if you guys don't know what these are, if we haven't explained them to you, these are wet bolts. So from most manufacturers just put regular bolts in here with plastic bushings. And these are wet bolts. Obviously they're greased and they have, what are they, bronze bushings?
Bronze bushings.
Bronze
yep.
bushings. So definitely a huge upgrade here. Let's get to those brake lines. I'm gonna let Mel take this one. He's already done some significant work here and it looks really clean, and he's even gonna clean it up some more. So one thing he did want me to show you while I'm here is he'd make sure to mark up where your cross members are, because he's going to do some additional mounting. But Mel, go ahead and take it away, man.
So what I did here was I mounted my flexible brake lines that go to the caliper, and then I mounted my bracket. Now one thing that you want to keep in mind here is I put this little S bend, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can work it to whatever works, you know, best for your situation. But the reason I put this in here is to keep any chances of contact from these bolts coming up and hitting the lines should anything happen. So we want to keep those as clear as possible, and I've done that on all four
yeah, this
lines.
is something I would not have thought of. I just ran it straight up. Every single brake caliper he's done that on, so that is awesome. You want to tell them why we marked up the cross members?
Yeah, basically what I did was I just dropped some underbelly so that I could see in. I only had to take a couple of bolts loose so I could see right in here, and then I reached back to find that cross member, and as I was pushing on it I just marked it, and I marked the edges of it in the center. So what I'll do is I'll put a P-clamp on here like that.
Yeah, so it's gonna ride tight to the underbelly.
Yep.
Nice, man. All right, let's keep it going. So here, you can see this is, I guess this is the next step, right?
Yep. This is going to be my line that comes from the actuator up front.
Okay, so from here, we're right in front of the front axle right now, and from here we're going to run the line all the way up. You see he's got some underbelly out. He's been running some wiring. We're going to show that to you in just a second. But yeah, let's keep going. Okay, you're going to hear some umbrella noise here. I'm trying to keep this lens dry. Mel, we're talking about the actuator now. We just showed you guys where the line is in front of the front tire at this point. The line has to run up to an actuator. Do you want to tell them what the actuator does right quick?
Yeah, basically the actuator is what operates off of your brake pedal. The voltage that's put out through your braking electric brake will activate the hydraulic actuator, which will engage the brakes.
So basically it's going to know your gain and it's going to react off of that.
It works off of all
So
that.
let me go in here and show you. And while I'm doing this, Mel, why don't you tell them why you picked this location?
What I was looking for was some place that's going to be out of the way. You know, not a lot of stuff going to be hitting on it or anything like that as you're loading or unloading gear.
That's perfect. And I'm not going to have to access that very rarely, right? I mean,
yeah, rarely will you.
Once
ever
a year,
have to.
maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to check your level.
Cool. All right. Okay, guys. So obviously, once you run the lines, you get everything set up. You got to bleed the brakes, but first you need to check for leaks. And Mel's got a great way to do that. Go ahead, man.
Right. What I'm doing right now is I'm just using our breakaway switch. When I pull that, it's energizing. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it's energizing the actuator, and going to build pressure. And then you can just slip that back in there and it shuts right off.
Okay. And you guys could hear that. I'm sure you could hear that pump. Once that pump started to really work, that's when we shut it off.
Right.
Now we go check for leaks?
Yep, that's what
All right, cool, man. So we checked for leaks the first time.
Yep.
We did have a couple.
Found two leaks.
That's
and
right.
A possible third. The one was a fitting I didn't have tightened up, and the other one just luck of the draw.
That's why we check. I told Mel if he told me he didn't have any leaks, I'd be like, oh boy, I'm going to have to find them.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to have them pretty much.
You're always going to find something. There's
Yep.
a lot of little things that can come back.
Absolutely. So grateful for Mel, man. He is knocking this out of the park. Okay, friends, so we put some pressure on the lines. We checked for leaks. And I keep saying we. Mel did this stuff, okay? So Mel checked for leaks. Had one leak, and then we had one bad fitting, right?
We got a bad fitting, yep.
So that wasn't on Mel. That was actually one of the brass fittings had a pinhole leak. So that's one huge reason to check for leaks. And then bleeding the brakes. You want to take that one?
Yeah, so basically what I did was you have to have a battery for the breakaway and power the actuator. So what I actually use when I do them is pull the breakaway switch, and that will power your actuator. Let it build a little pressure, plug it back in, wait. then you can go back to the back, and if you have somebody else, it helps. They can pull that breakaway switch for you, and you can bleed them. But that is a way to do it. It's okay because you're not leaving that run for a very long time. It's just a simpler way to do bleeding the brakes without having to hook your truck and everything.
And like, if you've ever bled brakes, I've done it a bunch. You got somebody in the truck pumping the brakes until he gets all the air out. So basically, he's using that actuator instead of pumping the brakes. You don't have to hook the truck up. So that's awesome. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about that. That's why Mel's here, right? So,
and
cool.
it's a great way to do it. You can listen to that actuator as it builds pressure, and then you can unplug it. You'll totally hear the difference as it builds pressure and you get the air out of the lines.
Awesome. So another thing with this upgrade, I'm going to have to break these brakes in. It's hard to say. Anytime you do a brake job, especially ones with new rotors and new pads, they're going to be spongy at first. This is for cars, RVs, anything. They're going to be spongy at first. So what do you think? Probably 90 miles, 100 miles?
Yeah.
Should be a good
And there's
test.
a procedure. You can go to our website, and that tells you how to burnish brakes and stuff.
There you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Mel, thank you so much, man.
It was a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. We'll do an update vid with this. After we tow a good bit with it, I'll let you know. We're so excited, and thank you, Lippert Components. We're very grateful. This is awesome. I hope this was helpful, guys, and if it was, consider subscribing. See ya.